Good day, everyone. I'm John, moderator for this webinar. I welcome everyone for today's webinar, Understanding Credit for Prior Learning, Credit Where Credit is Due. I would now like to introduce our presenter for today, Ken Seaver. Ken Seaver has 23 years of experience in the field of student assessment, prior learning, and academic access. I would now like to hand over the floor to the speaker. Over to you, Ken.
Thank you very much. I wanted to welcome everyone. It's very, very rewarding to know that there are people out there like myself who value prior learning, who value what it means to students, but also the institution. But there's also those out there who know precious little about it. And those are the individuals that I really hope we can focus on today. And also those of you who know something about it, maybe show you some different ways where it can benefit you and your institution. Of what exactly prior learning is in an academic setting. Colleges that choose to offer the credit measure what students know. PLA, CPL, RPL. Prior learning assessment, PLA, is called different things to different people in different parts of the country and even different countries. When I first got into higher education in 1999, it was prior learning assessment. In more recent years, I've seen organizations in this country refer to it as credit for prior learning. In Canada, I've seen it as RPL, which is recognition for prior learning. One of the things that's important to understand about prior learning in general are the specific benefits. What can students obviously get from this particular area of work, but also what schools themselves can generate. A lot of this was also released in the U.S. News and World Report of October 13th of 2021, and one of the most obvious for those of you who have worked with it, but not always clear to a lot of students and parents themselves, is prior learning assessments are going to save quite a bit of money, and that's always important. There are other benefits as well. Take a look at this information also from the U.S. News. One of the more important areas that I have always been able to work with in my positions has always been in the state of Texas, working with those students considered underrepresented. Whether you're talking about individuals who come from first-generation backgrounds, individuals who come from Hispanic, Black, and other recognized minority communities, something that's always impressed me is how prior learning has been able to benefit and allow those individuals to get a foothold in college and institutions of higher learning. To continue with how it benefits the underrepresented students, the words itself are on the screen, but it needs to be more widespread. PLA has a significant boosting effect on completion rates for low-income adults and adults of color. One of the other tie-ins that I think is important to understand when you're dealing with underrepresented students, but also students in general, is how prior learning can also lead to success and access to the STEM field. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We've heard this particular acronym and words for many, many years now. This is from a White House initiative on educational excellence from 7 years ago, but it is still so important today when you're dealing with institutions of higher learning. I've mentioned what prior learning does for students, veterans, something that I've worked with a lot in my career, something that I'm very, very, very proud of. I myself am not a veteran, but I come from a veteran family. And this is very, very recent information that relates to the community college level from the American Association of Community Colleges this past spring. Now, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most important parts of what I think is important in this particular presentation, and what I'm hoping a lot of you can take notes on, is what we can do. Now, there's a lot of things that we in higher education can and can't do. You have to be able to improve communication about PLA opportunities with students. Make sure that your faculty are involved in the process of implementing prior learning effectively. It's hard to improve your communication about PLA. Taking that a step further, workforce training, systematic processes that ensure that PLA opportunities are available. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is a link between prior learning and mentoring, but they also talk about how mentoring constitutes an extremely part of successful prior learning experiences. The questions they asked are the same questions I asked. By partnering or pairing your incoming students, whether that be freshmen or transfer, with existing students who have credit or recognition for prior learning. You have to understand where mentoring plays and where it fits in the student's life. It can take many forms, but as you can see, you have peer mentoring and new student onboarding. Those are the two most effective methods, according to Professor Barton and numerous others. We use peer-to-peer mentoring connected to each degree program across our undergraduate studies. So when you're looking at the link again, when you're talking about what's going on, the process itself, not all that difficult. Incoming students are evaluated on several factors, but we a lot of times are going to look at prior learning credit, specifically when looking at the numbers. For the onboarding process, in the fall 2018, more numbers. The CHAMPS Peer Mentoring Program at the University of Arizona is a perfect example, and this is at their global campus. On the other side of the country, the University of Tampa in Florida has something called the Success Scholars Program, where you can see support program about 18 undergraduates, mentors known as SPEARS, provide guidance and support to 400 plus first generation and underrepresented students every year. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for taking part in this today. I think it's very, very important to know what exists in terms of prior learning, what you may know, but also what you don't know and what's out there. The schools themselves have to do a better job in general. And if you're one of those schools that's doing what I suggested, fantastic. Make sure others are doing it. If you're not doing anything that's prior learning related, please take notes on what others, including my school, are doing, and understand that your students, regardless of where you are in this country, can benefit from prior learning policies. 2-year, 4-year, public, private, you're not isolated. There are things that you can and should be doing to help our students. Student success is why we're here. Student success is why we will be here 10 years from now. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Again, I want to thank everyone for taking part. You obviously have an interest in how to use prior education and prior learning, or you wouldn't be here. But I think the underlying factor, and I say this for the conclusion, the underlying factor for all of us is access to education. I think that's the most important aspect of any institution's mission. If access is denied or hindered, it can have serious unintended consequences for not only the students, but also the institution as a whole. Having a clear and concise understanding of prior learning assessments, as well as a plan in place to make sure that those policies are widespread and basically marketed, is the way to keep those roadblocks from happening. Overall success for the school and community is important. That is done through access. Prior learning assessment to me has always been about access to what education has to offer. There are different ways students get into college. This is one. I'm not saying it's any better, but it's certainly not any worse. And it's one that needs to be understood at all levels. Thank you all very, very much.
Thanks, Ken. That does conclude the session. You may all disconnect now. Thank you, everyone.